Hey, I'd like to call to order the August 17, 2026 City Council meeting at 7 p.m. If you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Crowded room. We actually have a full staff roll call. We're all here today. Before I begin and get on the agenda, I'd like to just take a moment to remember and honor Jeff Weiss, the longtime director of Scappoose Public Library, who passed away on July 24. Jeff served our community as library director since 2017. He brought with him 25 years of library experience from Muncie, Indiana, where I believe people here will remember most his quiet, gentle nature and his genuine commitment to helping others. Jeff worked countless hours to make our library and is there for our community. He believed that everyone who walked through the library doors mattered and deserved to be treated with kindness and respect. So on behalf of the City Council and the City of Scappoose, I want to extend our deepest condolences to Jeff's family, friends, library colleagues, and everyone in our community who knew and appreciated him. So I'd like to ask everybody to join me in a moment of silence for Jeff's memory. Okay, thank you. Okay, as we move on to tonight's agenda, I did want to make one little change on resolution 2607. It should read 2611, number 5. And I was wondering if I could add just one. We have Tyler Ferreras here today. I'd like to be able to say something that maybe words you guys feel that number 3, right after the oath of office. A little thank you to Tyler. Make it 2.A or 2.2B, so we don't have to change all the other numbers. 2B. For looking at that, I would look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve tonight's agenda as amended.
Councilor Haugen makes a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended. Any seconds?
Second.
Second by Councilor Santiago. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So tonight, we are now on to public comment. This is the place on the agenda where the public is invited to speak to council regarding any matter not on the agenda and not scheduled for public hearing. Members of the public addressing council are requested to give their name and city of residence. Please try not to repeat questions to allow for more speakers. Speakers will limit their testimony to 5 minutes. We're limited to 30 minutes total for all public comments. I do have one so far. Ms. Haggis, if you'd like to step up to the microphone.
This one working this time?
It should be good. Oh, no.
My name is Alicia Higas, resident of Scappoose. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm going to be very direct. I believe the city of Scappoose has a leadership problem. I've spent years raising concerns about accountability, transparency, inconsistent enforcement, and conduct within this city. When the same problems continue under the same leadership, we have to stop pretending they're isolated incidents. The Urban Renewal Grant is a perfect example. My husband and I have asked what documentation showed that previously identified compliance issues were corrected before the grant application moved forward. City Manager Ben Berginger told us that a final staff report memorialized staff's review and determination that the application met the grant requirements. When it wasn't provided, we filed a public records request seeking that documentation he told us existed. Only then did Mr. Berginger acknowledge he needed to correct a prior statement. The city's official records response followed. The final staff report he referenced, none exists. A written staff recommendation, none exists. Documentation that the compliance issues were corrected or identifying who verified the corrective work, Nothing in writing exists. That's a serious credibility problem. Council relies on the city manager too. If residents cannot rely on the accuracy of his representations, how can council be confident the information you're receiving is accurate? These accountability concerns also extend to enforcement. An abandoned boat sat on a public street for months. SPD knew about it. It had already been cited. And on July 1st, Officer McFarland posted an abandoned vehicle notice citing SMC 11.04.280. Yet the owner was given until August 19th before it would be towed, approximately 7 additional weeks. Why? Was this consistent with how SPD treats other residents, or was someone given special treatment? What other laws and ordinances aren't being enforced? And who decides when enforcement is optional? My concerns with SPD go beyond enforcement. I have a video of an encounter involving recently promoted Detective Johnson and a resident who called the police himself last month. The resident was frustrated and trying to grab his phone. Rather than de-escalating, Johnson's response escalated the encounter to the point that he reached for and attempted to draw his firearm in the presence of half a dozen children. And the council needs to know something else. He couldn't get the gun out of his holster. Think about that. Why was reaching for a firearm necessary? And if an officer believes circumstances justify drawing one, is he sufficiently trained and proficient to respond safely? Those are serious public safety questions. The resident subsequently complained to Chief Llewellyn, so leadership was notified and is aware of the concern. Was Johnson's body-worn camera footage reviewed? Was his decision for reaching for his firearm and his inability to successfully draw it evaluated? Was the complaint investigated? And how does an officer involved in an incident raising these questions subsequently get promoted to detective? SPD needs meaningful de-escalation training before somebody gets hurt. But this goes beyond one officer. I've raised concerns about SPD's accountability, transparency, enforcement practices, and conduct for years. I believe we reached the point where the Scappoose Police Department needs new leadership. And the leadership problem doesn't stop with SPD. The city manager oversees city operations. Council oversees the city manager. I have lost confidence in both the police department's leadership and the city manager. I'm asking council to seriously evaluate whether you still have confidence in that leadership. An oath of office requires integrity, accountability, equal application of our laws, protection of this community, and telling the truth, even when it's inconvenient. I shouldn't have to file public records requests to determine whether things I'm being told by city leadership are true. Residents shouldn't have to question whether city ordinances are enforced equally or whether some people are given special treatment. And we shouldn't have to wait for somebody to get hurt before demanding accountability from our police department. These aren't isolated complaints anymore. This is a pattern, and patterns are a leadership issue. Scappoose deserves leadership that the public and this council can trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to, is there any more public comment online? Anybody else here in pink slips? All right, thank you. We'll close public comment. Moving on to number 1, tonight's consent agenda, July 2026, city council meeting minutes. I'm looking for approval of tonight's consent agenda.
Mayor, I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Councilor Marquis makes a motion to approve. Any second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Santiago. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to number 2, oath of office for Officer Cunningham. If you join me down here, appreciate it. Okay. Reaffirming your oath of office. Please state your full name. Hereby swear on my oath to honestly and faithfully discharge my duties of police officer for the city of Scappoose, and that I will support the laws, the Constitution of the state of Oregon, and the United States of America, and the charter and ordinances of the city of Scappoose, to the best of my ability, so help me God. All right, thank you.
Officer Davis already warned me about this. It is a pleasure to be here. From day one on, I think it was March 23rd, Chief told me I was hired. I was just very excited to start. 16 weeks to the academy was grueling, a little boring in some spots, but it was great to be back on week one and get straight to the road and just kind of hit the road running. It's been great so far. I appreciate you, Chief. I appreciate all the other officers that have been there and supported me through the entire thing. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Want to get a picture with? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Clear the bill. Okay, one more. We're on to 2B. If Tyler Ferreira, come on up here.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
here's a box for Tyler.
I'll come in your way. You make that yourself? Tyler was representative of the Scappoose School District on our student council for last year, so we wanted to give this to him. The certificate is proudly presented to 2026 City Council Student Representative Tyler Ferreira in recognition of your outstanding dedication, commitment, and valuable contributions as a volunteer with Scappoose City Council. Your efforts have made a meaningful impact, and we sincerely appreciate your time, energy, and service. Mayor Joe Backus and City Council presented today, August 17th, 2026. Thank you. All right. Ooh. Big one here. Okay, we're on to old business. Doing this all right. We, last meeting, we had our first reading of ordinance 927. Notes. There's first reading there. Your second reading. This ordinance is on second reading. It received a motion for approval and a second during the July 2026 City Council meeting. So is there any other additional discussion? A couple counselors that have read and listened online, but were not here at the meeting. If you guys have any questions, you guys have asked your questions, have had discussions, I'm assuming.
Yes, we got.
Your own-
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself.
Okay.
And I'll be recusing myself as well.
Okay, what I will do then, why don't we, just to make it good, is have you guys leave. We'll call you back in as soon as we're done. Is there anything new to add since our last meeting, Lori?
No, there's nothing to add
Okay.
here.
If not, I'll read the ordinance title for the second time and call for the vote. Ordinance 927, an ordinance relating to land use, amending the urban growth boundary, establishing urban reserves, amending the comprehensive plan text and map, amending the zoning map, and amending the Scappoose Municipal Code chapters 17.22, 17.26, 17.40, 17.44, 17.50, 17.54, 17.56, 17.62, 17.68, 17.70, 17.74, 17.81, 17.82, 17.84, 17.85, 17.86, 17.89, 17.92, 17.94, 17.100, 17.104, 17.106, 17.114, 17.120, 17.126, 17.130, 17.134, 17.136, 17.140, 17.142, 17.150, 17.152, 17.154, 17.160, 17.162, and 17.164. So we had a first and second and no more discussion. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Did you vote?
Yes.
Okay. So 4-1, motion carries. So that is that on the 50-year plan and ordinance 927. I want to thank you, Lori and crew, for all your help and work on this for several years. Beth, and appreciate all your help. So hopefully now we'll make sure it works well. Okay, we're done there. If they want to come back in, Marty's out in the hall. Okay, now we're on to new business. St. Helens to Scappoose Trail Refinement Project Feasibility Study. Community Development Director Lori Joseph with her report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight I'm just bringing you really an update on this project. It actually got kicked off last December. We've had a few project management meetings. And just as a reminder, it was back in June 23rd, 2024 that City Council first approved the resolution, which allowed Scappoose to enter into an IGA with St. Helens to coordinate on this project. The city has already paid their match for this grant. And so the purpose really was there were some questions that ODOT leadership received about feasibility and cost effectiveness. There was a slight pause while information was gathered to resolve this and just to get early kind of touch points and buy-in from council here in Scappoose as well as in St. Helens and the County Board of Commissioners. ODOT chose to incorporate this feasibility study at the beginning of the project, kind of moved it up in the process as part of task 3. And so the purpose of the preliminary feasibility assessment really is to identify any, well, first of all, to identify potential alignments for the path. You'll notice as you look through the packet that the trail alignment is divided into 3 different segments with 3 different alternative options for the trail alignment within each of those segments. Once those potential alignments were discussed, they evaluated the feasibility of each of those potential alignments. The initial screening does show that feasible options for a path exist. And then just to note that the evaluation in this report relies on available data, does not yet include any community input or coordination with interested parties, such as maybe some of the private property owners that this could affect. That input will be conducted at a later stage in this project to confirm feasibility and inform the selection of the preferred path alternative. Additionally, the consultant team conducted brief case studies to identify and then summarize the approaches that some other similar paths have used to address similar key challenges, such as in our case, this is going to traverse wetlands, private property, railroad coordination. There is some floodplain as well. And that information is included in Appendix A, which is in your packets. And so ODOT asked that the preliminary feasibility study be shared with council and that any major concerns are identified now before any additional planning work continues. And then as stated by ODOT, all of the funding to complete this planning does remain in place. And all other existing tasks would continue to move forward once ODOT hears back from Scappoose and St. Helens City Councils and Columbia County Board of Commissioners. And so you'll see in figure 4 within the feasibility study that the trail route, again, you have 3 different segments, 3 different potential trail alignments within those. For our segment, which is the southern segment 3, the discussion on that starts on page 102 of your packet. There is a map of the potential alignments on page 103. Again, there is an actual table that kind of grades and lists each of the concerns that are identified. That table is on page 115. And then for Scappoose, which again is trail segment 3, alternative B and C trail alignments are both emerging as promising options. The consultant team is not seeing any fatal flaws with those alignments at this stage. And so once, in terms of finalizing the trail alignments, that's going to involve a site visit, which we will also open up to our public advisory committee and technical advisory committee members. It'll also include utility, rail, and property owner coordination, partner review and refinement. We'll be working closely with the rail as well. We will have public engagement, so that definitely we want that public input before the preferred alternative is selected. And then further evaluation in terms of getting a little bit more specific on that preferred alignment. So looking at things such as, right-of-way acquisition, physical space constraints, any utility conflicts, safety, and then access to key destinations along the proposed alignment. So again, this is just included for you all to have a look at, and then to let me know of any concerns that you have at this point, or if your feedback is this is great and exciting, I'm happy to take that back to the team as well.
Quick question I have is kind of looking at it. I mean, would we then be, I know we paid 1/3 of the matching, would we be responsible basically for the cost of our section?
Yeah, and those discussions haven't really occurred yet, because this is essentially what this results in is a 30% plan for construction of the preferred alternative, right? So it doesn't include any type of construction funding at this stage. And I think, Mayor, that would make sense that, each jurisdiction would share in the cost of development. I would say if it's outside of, RUGB, that would be a good case for that, would more be on the county side of things. But those discussions haven't actually taken place yet. I anecdotally have heard through the consultant and through ODOT that there could be future grant funding available for the actual construction piece.
And that total project cost of $405,000, that's a portion of it? Or
The $405,000 is just to do this 30% design.
Laurie,
Yes.
first, I'm delighted to see this moving forward.
Yeah.
It's been a long time in coming, but one of the questions I have is on page 103 map. I assume you could mix and match option B and C in terms of a route across Moore Road and West Lane. Simply, just from the viewpoint of a cycler.
Yeah.
I hate driving with the gravel trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think, either one of those would be good if you, I think it would be better if you took them off the gravel truck route. But I'll make that comment later too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Counselor
So you're just basically what preference we A, B, or C, correct? That's
Not even that, because we're gonna get more feedback as we delve into the project a little bit more and get community input, et cetera. And so not, for this meeting, it's not about, which alignment you prefer. It's more, do you have any overall concerns with this whole thing moving forward in terms of just completing the 30% design and moving?
No, I'm totally for the idea. If I was thinking of concern, I was like trying to avoid the Highway 30.
Yeah, and I will say that for each of the trail segments, the first option was just having it on the 30 alignment. That is the fatal flaw with all of them. It doesn't work because in most cases, ODOT right of way butts directly up against the rail right of way. And so there really isn't a great place to put a trail.
Right, okay. And then you said, like, for example, alternative C that doesn't have already a road, so then it has to be constructed. So this 405,000 K, is that already estimated in all of the options?
So again, that's just to do this planning.
Oh, the planning.
That has
Okay.
nothing to do with construction. Appendix B was the last item in that packet, and that has the costs, yeah. And
Thank you.
alternative B and C, actually, they have essentially at the same cost. So either one is,
Did they look at moving the rail and using the rail line as the trail and moving the rail somewhere else?
no, wouldn't that be nice?
I've seen a lot of old railroad lines
Well,
turn into
there's
trails.
rails to
so-
trails,
Yeah. And can you
No,
not make a trail on top of the dike? Can that be a trail? Can you not pave the top of a dike? Can you not?
You could, but that's outside of the project area, yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So I guess the biggest concern that I have on these types of projects is the property owners willing to transact.
Yes.
There's no legal authority to force them to do anything in these cases, is there?
Potential, not to my knowledge, and that's not necessarily a direction we would want to go. The only thing I could think of is like if they were to force eminent domain or something and state that it's for a public purpose. But I don't know that that's really what anyone's looking to do here. And that's why it's going to be really important to have those property owner conversations.
And at what, do they make that a step more upfront before we put too much time
Yeah.
into? Okay.
Yes, so we don't want to present this generally to the public to get their buy-in until those conversations have been had to know that, these are still possibilities in the different routes that we're looking at.
How does the immunity get triggered on things like this? If something happens on the trail, and maybe now's not the right time to ask this question, but I guess
I don't know if
I
Beth,
just,
if you can
from a
speak to
property
that.
owner's perspective, that is
Yeah.
one of the concerns that I would have
Yep.
is if somebody sustains an injury while on their part of, on their
Yeah.
parcel, the part that passes through.
I mean, I would think that hopefully as a part of this, it can either happen where the cities or county can acquire the property. Yeah, or it's going to come through an easement. And so I guess I'm not quite certain what that looks like if Ben has any.
Right, that would have to be reviewed by our attorney, but recreation community should apply to some extent if it's a city purpose or county purpose trail for recreation purposes. But yeah, we'd have to get an official legal opinion on that.
I guess to kind of firm that up, I am curious if it's an easement, if that immunity still applies, or does the government entity have to own the dirt to?
Yeah, like I said, we need to follow up on that, but if it's a city built and maintained facility, it's usually even with an easement, just like if you're leasing property, that would be a city's or county infrastructure that would be viable for.
I'm just flagging that because if you approach me, that'd be one of the questions that I would immediately have.
That's a good question.
On that piece. Thank you.
No, I just I answered my own question because I couldn't see. I didn't bring my glasses and I was just wondering what,
Gotcha.
I'm good.
Well, I think this is good.
Okay.
Appreciate this, and I like the
Perfect.
having the other options to go on and look and go out and check out these other trails and see how they've worked.
Right.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 5, resolution now 2611, a resolution of the council of the city of Scappoose authorizing the city manager to make an application to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, Transportation Growth Management, DGM, grant program to develop a downtown improvement plan. Community Development Director Lori Joseph with the staff report on that as well.
Thank you. Yes, this continues to be a council priority to develop a downtown improvement plan. We have identified a grant that would fund that plan. The grant is due this Friday, and we did apply last year. We scored well, but it is a very competitive process, and our TSP was funded, but not the downtown plan. So again, my ask is that you would approve Resolution 2611, which just gives City Manager Benjamin the ability to make application to DLCD for this grant.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Council.
So I know what this means, but just as a matter of putting it on the record for clarity too, on Bates number 135, physical impact, it says none. It goes on to say the grant request will be for 185,000 and there's no match require, or excuse me, there is a grant match requirement of 11.5 requested funds, but we are matching that in basically
Okay.
labor and supplies. So we're not actually going to be giving 21,275 in cash.
Correct.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Councilor Haugen.
I move that council adopt resolution 26-07, a resolution of the council of the city of Scappoose authorizing the city manager to make application to the Department of Land Conservation Development, TGM's grant program to develop downtown improvement plan and sign all associated documents, including the final grant agreement if awarded.
Okay, Councilor, it's 2611.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2611, correct that.
I have a motion by Councilor Haugen to adopt resolution 2611. Any seconds?
Second.
Second by Councilor Miller. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Okay,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
so this has to be updated too. Okay, all this.
Yes, resolution will be fine. Number 6,
Should we put that on the record, the correction
yes,
verbally?
yes, I'm gonna put on the record, we did in the agenda, we've changed that. Originally it was resolution 2607, but it is correctly as 2611. So on the record, that's resolution 2611. Okay, now we're on to number 6, ordinance 928, an ordinance amending Scappoose Municipal Code, chapter 13.22. We are at a public hearing and our first reading. Stormwater management, so City Manager Chris Nagelsbaugh. And we got
You've been promoted.
Now he's gonna demote.
Nope, on my book, on my notes, the engineer. So this is just you. I see there's a big table, but this is City Engineer Chris Nagelsbaugh with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing this to be on the agenda for tonight. This council action is somewhat timely as we're under a deadline to get this section of our stormwater code amended. So back in, just a little background, back in 2019, the DEQ adopted a plan that required agencies to control mercury deposition in soil from running off into local streams in the Willamette Basin. And so we're in that basin, and the plan gave timelines for implementing certain portions of the full requirement. And we're currently on item 4 on a table of items that include 6 items. first three we took care of with updates to our website, reporting on maintenance, things that we were already doing. So those were fairly basic things that we were already doing. We just had to document them. So we took care of that. This code amendment. I'll just read from the staff report here. The report's called the Final Revised Willamette Basin Mercury Total Maximum Daily Load Plan. We call it the TMDL. We'll call it the Mercury TMDL plan. And in our case, it's for cities and populations under 10,000. There are different requirements for cities over 10,000. Somewhat more stringent. They have a few more things to deal with. The plan required phase implementation of those requirements. The current phase requires establishment of an illicit discharge detection and elimination prevention program by ordinance, and that we affectionately call the IDDE prevention program. The existing chapter 1322, which we currently have, establishes the city stormwater management utility and addresses administration charges, billing, collection, appeals, account use, classification, severability. However, the current chapter contains a limited language addressing water quality, illicit connections and discharges, private stormwater facilities, spill response, inspections, remediation, monitoring, enforcement. So there was a lot of things to incorporate in our code, which were not there. So to help streamline that process, we looked to other agencies that were similar in size. St. Helens is over 10,000, so they were required to implement these things about a year ago. They've had some time to work through the code. We looked at them. They seem to have some good model code for us. So we use that as the base for the red line update to our chapter 1322. And those things essentially added definitions, some additional findings and policy, public and private maintenance responsibilities, and then of course the water quality and illicit discharge prohibitions, permit compliance, spill remediation, the other things I mentioned earlier, inspections and enforcement in order to meet those IDE requirements. The amendment does not change any provisions regarding stormwater rates. Those are being kept the same. So our recommendation to council is to approve the ordinance amending Scappoose Municipal Code Chapter 1322 as presented. It's attached in your packets as Exhibit A. Everything that's been changed is underlined and in red text, so you can kind of page through and see what things were added. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I do. What is under enforcement provisions?
The enforcement provisions?
Yeah, what is that? What do you define that?
They're already have an obligation to do, like private property owners are already required to do maintenance on their storm facilities. This would allow us an enforcement tool to that. It identifies a fee amount, which previously we didn't have that was stormwater specific. It names the right now, the enforcement will be through our nuisance code, so it references that code essentially. So we'll be using other code. We might provide more clarity to this chapter in the future to have enforcement called out more specifically here, but for now we're using our existing code for that. The other thing is it identifies fines for illicit discharge, which we don't really have identified. Traditionally, that would have been handled through the DEQ. We would have notified them and then they would investigate and issue some enforcement action.
Okay, thank you.
One question I have is kind of modeling it after St. Helens. You did say they're over 10,000. So are we using their old plan? I mean, is it more stringent? I mean, we're still at the under 10,000 landing phase?
They're essentially, I mean, with regard to this, it's essentially the same. We'll be meeting the same standard as they are.
do we have resources to enforce this?
Those issues are in discussion. We currently do not. Well, we do through our code enforcement officer. And so that's how we'll, there's some additional updates that we'll be doing that are required to be done over the next few years that will require more routine inspections, similar to what the DEQ requires for construction stormwater permits at 1200C. If you're familiar with that, we don't necessarily have all the resources in place for that, but we've got some years to figure it out.
Chris, what's our history of testing for mercury in the community stormwater?
We don't have any history of
We don't have
that.
any historical testing at all.
And I don't believe the DEQ actually tested in our reach of
Yeah, I
this space.
noticed that on their chart. They were just nothing close to us, but we have no testing of mercury in our.
We've done testing over the years on channel and wastewater effluent. That's the.
Okay, so we have gotten the test out of our effluent in the channel. Okay.
I did make that suggestion that we do some, analytics that go along with this and the temperature, because you have a temperature TMDL we're having to write code for, that we would, do some testing at South Scappoose Creek coming into the city, and then as it leaves the city.
Good.
Because that would give us some really good baseline data to know if we're making progress. And possibly to somewhat, reduce the burden on the city if they're like, making steps to make things better, or if there's just no change essentially. But the DEQ wants all of these things implemented regardless of those levels.
Good.
But I do agree that some testing would be good.
Yeah.
And we have been in discussions with the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council executive director to do some testing. And so we would probably do that, over the next few years, just to get some baseline data. I think that would be a great idea.
Okay.
And if we're found to be over the limits, what are the mitigation steps that can be taken?
Well, we're not really over a limit, although we don't know, right? Because there could be stuff coming to us that I don't think anything from Scappoose is causing an issue, but we could have waters coming to us that are, because that basin is in a heavily logged area. And so basically what you're trying to do is control erosion and sediment, because that transports mercury. So in so much as we can control, sediment loading in the creek, then we shouldn't see a problem here. Even during high storm events, we don't get a lot of erosion in the creek, which is kind of good news, I think. We try to, obviously, those sources from within the city are heavily regulated. As projects get developed, they have, strict controls over runoff. If we do find levels that are elevated, we would certainly discuss that with the DEQ. So right now, I think that they're probably non-detectable, because again, it's all related to sediment transport.
Yeah, I would guess that they're probably more likely in North Scappoose Creek than South Scappoose Creek, because of the whole rail activities and just the development up the canyon there.
Right. Agree with that.
So, did you get your answer? Did he answer your question?
Well, it sounds like the city wouldn't be obligated to do a lot of extraordinary mitigation efforts if we had higher levels.
Yeah, we're already kind of doing all of these things anyway. It's just not being documented. I mean, everything down to an acre is being managed, how this code is written. We're just regulating it now down to a half an acre.
Okay.
And so it's just a more stringent, so now it's getting regulated down to smaller developments, which essentially are already doing these things anyway. So it's more of a documentation exercise.
I'm sorry, did you say we're not documented, or we will document?
We would, under this, you're sort of having to document and report.
Okay, good.
So
That's what, okay. Great.
Yeah, so it's just more, I mean, these things are happening, but
Mhm.
they're just, people are observing if activities might cause an issue, and they're making contractors correct those issues
Okay.
in the field. They're not like writing it in a logbook. This would essentially require that. And then reporting back to the DEQ on failures and reporting on the remediation.
Yeah, I guess when Counselor Holmes asked that question, I also thought like, who would be responsible? Who, obviously investigation, who pays for what? If something happens, if something bad happens, or the water gets contaminated, who's at fault? And so we do have processes in place for those. And that's what this ordinance about, right?
Yes, and
Okay.
the enforcement piece would, there's fines,
Mhm.
and then there's also whatever costs are related to cleaning up those illicit discharges, because it could be many other things too.
And that would be your department, Chris?
We would have code enforcement handle the enforcement, and then it would go through the court system for the
Court
fines.
system. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We need to.
Yeah, let me add, first, this is a public hearing, so if there's no more questions, I'll open up a public hearing. Anybody has any comments or anything in the public?
And online?
Fine, nope. Okay, we will close the public hearing. My question then is kind of looking at this as being a first reading, second reading. Is this like normal, Ben, where we will do a motion and a second and then stop and come back and read it, finish it at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Not an emergency type where you have the 30 days you're talking about time.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Council President Miller.
I move that council approve ordinance, or we are still making the first motion, though, right? Yeah, okay. I move that council approve ordinance number 928, amending Scappoose Municipal Code, chapter 13.22, stormwater management.
A motion by Council President Miller to approve ordinance 928, amending Scappoose Municipal Code 13.22, stormwater management as presented. Any second? Second, Marquis, Council Marquis. Okay, we'll leave it there as a first reading, and we'll come back to the next meeting and discuss further. Take a vote.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
Besides asking about the biosolids, we're here for a change order, Keys Road. We're joined today by Public Works Director Kevin Turner and Contract Administrator Mattia Malberg with the staff report on the change order.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here to discuss a change order tonight, and Mattia has been doing a great job with contracting and tracking and development of those. So she's going to go over tonight's change order, and then I'll be available for any questions you have on those projects.
Good evening. So this project has been going on since 2024, and we are in the final wrap-up stages. There's a lot of detail within that staff report, and I could certainly dive into that. But I figured I'd just give you guys kind of an overview of what's happened. So since the contract was signed August 21st of 2024, there's been 6 approved change orders. Those are listed out within that staff report, and they detail the amount of those and what they were for. Combined, the total for those 6 change orders is just $12,889.92. This proposed change order, which is number 7, includes the completion of waterline work at depths greater than depicted on the contract drawings, resulting in additional time, labor, equipment, materials, and fees. And the proposed cost of this change order is $35,141.51. Staff is requesting changing the total not to exceed amount to $8,897,889.92 to cover the currently requested changes from MEI and any unforeseen additional changes that should arise during the completion of this project. While there are no anticipated future change orders in these final stages, staff is also requesting that City Manager Bergener be authorized to execute any additional change orders up to his limit to ensure the timely completion of the project. The council approved a special works fund loan on November 18th of 2024 with resolution 2417 for the amount of $2.95 million. Remaining funds currently sit at $955,843. The estimated remaining amount to be invoiced, which does include this change order request from MEI, is $439,060.72. So staff is recommending that council approve authorizing city manager Bergener a not to exceed budget of $8,897,889.92 for MEI, and authorization to execute any additional change orders within his limit for the purpose of completing the Keys Reservoir project.
Is this within your limit now? I mean,
75.
normally to 35,000?
Yes, it would have normally, my limit is 75, but because the prior agreement had a limit of a total $8 million plus project, it really falls into that approval. So yeah, it's typically, and we talked about this at the prior meeting, and the way we're looking at maybe adjusting the procurement in the future would be to have that similar to where you have the overall project, but then on small ones, we can, on a $9 million project, 50,000, 75 is not really a whole lot compared to the rest of the project, and it's very possible to hit those in change orders. We hope they don't. This one has stayed pretty low relatively to the rest of the project, only at just over 40,000 for the total of the project thus far, and that's all we're anticipating at this point. But it does, where normally we could adjust or approve these because of the way we've structured this in the past, you have to come back for a smaller approval.
Is this about done? I mean, are we using it yet? I mean,
We're not using it yet, but the reservoir is full. We're waiting on telemetry connections and a valve swap on the exterior of the new reservoir.
Will it be used in September, October? I mean, if.
Oh yeah, we're just a few weeks away from
we're
completion.
like, that's really dry season. And now we still have money available on the loan, how it reads.
That's correct.
And were these changes done, requested by the city, or were they all changes done by the contractor that they needed to make these
The
changes?
contractor, it's a construction project, there's always changes to it. And the biggest one was the depth of the pipe. The main cluster of valves was additional 10 feet. They started getting into that around January. So there's a lot of dewatering and just mud they had to deal with to get to that. And
They anticipate or put it part of the proposal? Or was that part?
it was labeled wrong. It was identified at a wrong depth in the proposal. The old plans from whenever that was built were not accurate.
So Kevin, so who was responsible for the inaccuracy? The contractor?
I guess it would be the original plans, and I don't know the date of that, 78, I believe. So those plans didn't match the depth when they did their calculations.
Right, so can we recover anything from that contract for this error?
I don't know if there was additional soil brought on after the fact that changed those depths. I don't have that information.
In these
Over the
larger
years.
projects, it's very common to not, even the best engineers try to do their best they can while they're creating these, but when you get on the project in person, there's always on-site unknowns that weren't identified because it's under the ground. We just have no clue what's there. Or it was maybe years of dirt that have accumulated, or there's so many different, you said 1970 something.
So for future reference, can we build that into our contracts so that that the contractor eats this?
It all depends on if it's really a fault of theirs or a fault of ours, or it's just an unknown and no party knew about it. Typically, so for example, we had a valve that needed to be replaced, and that we were looking at a changeover of $180,000. But as we went through that, we found out there was an error on the that there was a separate error that was actually on the contractor's side, and so we were able to recover that and say, hey, this was your error. And so they went down and fixed, and it was a separate thing that actually caused the issue. It wasn't what we had originally thought, but it did save the city a $180,000 change order because we were able to identify that. So we do that quite often. If it is clearly their fault, something that they did, that they should have known, or that it was because of their own actions, we can usually recover those. It's just really when it comes down to the unknown of plans from the city side or the contract from 1970, that's pretty hard to recover 40 years later who really is at fault on that one. It's just unknown.
So I have sorry, something to clarify. So the engineering plans were done in the 70s. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
That portion of the plant is 1978, I believe, 77, 78.
I'd add too that it had the contractor known that there was the additional depth of the piping, their contract value originally would have been more anyway. Essentially what you're seeing. I mean, what might have been slightly less, but they would have accounted for that.
So is this below the new reservoir or is this below the building? Is this below
It's
the
in-
old reservoir?
It's in between the building and the reservoir. It's the main valve cluster that valves the processed water to the 3 million gallon reservoir or the 2 million gallon reservoir.
And these are part of the engineering plans for the new reservoir that were done in the 70s?
Yes, those original elevations were taken from those plans and then those,
The current project plans weren't made in the 70s, but the
Okay, yeah.
information they got were from the plans that were
Yeah.
built in the 70s.
the original plans, and they don't
Good
dig down to
clarification.
get those depths for the new plans. They
Yeah,
go
but-
off the old plans and sometimes those aren't updated. I mean, these days we do a better job of making changes. If there was something they ran into back then, they had to change the elevation in the field and that didn't get updated to the plan. That happens occasionally.
In terms of the reference to the authorizing the city manager to just approve the change orders up to the limit, could we make it, I think this could be read one of two ways. It could be read that in total, the change orders could sum up to 75,000, or for each request, as long as it's under 75,000.
I would dictate totality would be within that. I mean, that would be of the project. I wouldn't be able to do individual. For something like this, that's how I'd recommend doing it, since it is such a big project. It'd just be for the small one-offs, or, you know, if we need to do something quick, that at least gives us that flexibility. But anything above and beyond that, we'd have to, or after several, that we'd have to bring it back to the council and obviously give an update and explain next route from there.
Yeah, and I would be comfortable with that, because if you look at all 7 change orders, they still don't sum
Right.
up to 75,000. So I think that is a good way to proceed efficiently, but we'll just, should make that clear.
That'd be
And
good.
there's no realistic way we can get MEI to eat this.
Well, and
It's not really MEI's issue.
Yeah.
It's just something they had to deal with.
Well, right, but they bid on a not to exceed amount. And then you have the change orders, which are we've already passed, but then this is something new. I mean, they should, a company should anticipate those kinds of things when they make a bid on a not to exceed project. That was my point, is
Sure, I understand.
any way we can get them to eat that.
well, it does depend on what the contract language says too. I'm sure there is some caveats built into that, but without knowing what that is, you know,
But no, that was my question. So there is no way we can carve that out.
No, not, I mean, there's no identified their fault issues,
Okay.
and difference in the plan. They have to put more money in than they anticipated. They didn't have good information from us in the first place to bid appropriately.
They
Um,
made it based on the plans we gave them. They don't
Right.
dig down and find out where. So if we had told them 10 feet lower, they would have bid $35,000 higher.
If it was a couple feet off, I'm sure that would have happened, but
Okay.
this is pretty significant.
But then, I mean, maybe your question stems around what type of contingency was originally built into the contract, and have they run through their contingency?
I'm not sure on that one. That would be,
To my knowledge, they haven't run through their contingency at all. Even to this day, we haven't even reached the full amount that they have to bill yet. So even with this change order, we're still, well, minus the change order, we still haven't reached that not to exceed. That makes sense, sorry.
For
so there's
their
still a
contract.
possibility that it could be under.
Yeah, there's still a possibility we could be under that amount.
Okay.
But just not having them fully billed us yet.
You're asking for about a 50,000 increase to the not to exceed order. About what it is, 7,000, 52,000.
I believe it's about like, yeah, that's about right. A little bit under.
Mr. Mayor,
Council President Miller.
I move that council authorize city manager Bergener to not to exceed budget of $8,897,889.92 for MEI and authorization to execute any additional change orders within his limit for the purpose of completing the Keys Reservoir project. Do we need to add some clarification? That's a total of 75,000 for all the change orders?
For all, yeah.
there? Okay, thank you.
I have a motion by Council President Miller to approve authorize city manager Bergener to not to exceed budget of $8,897,889.92 for MEI and authorization to execute any additional change orders within his limits for the purpose of completing the Keys Reservoir project. Any seconds?
Second.
Second by Councilor Haugen. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to our 2026 to 2028 LOC legislative priorities. City Manager Van Bergener's staff report.
Awesome, thank you. And before I start that, Tia, Kevin, Chris, thank you for your time, and Lori earlier for everything that you guys have done. Put a lot of time into everything that you do and all these.
And I should add really quick too, it's the reservoir's looking really good. Some of us drive by it, several times daily and it looks very nice. Thank you.
I'd love to have it wrapped with trees, paint, I'll show you several on the map that we'll get a class up there painting it or some mural group or something wrap it with green trees.
Mayor's face on it.
Great idea.
Maybe an urban renewal project.
Yeah.
Get some trees up there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Real quick.
All right, so League of Oregon Cities priority list every other year. The League of Oregon Cities sends out a member voting guide detailing this year it's 27 different legislative policy priorities. These 27 priorities were created by 7 League of Oregon City policy committees that consist of city officials throughout the state of Oregon. We do have a deadline to respond by September 25th, so we don't have to have an answer today. We could make final answers by the next council meeting if we wanted to. However, I'll leave that with the council if there is clear direction or if we want to do votes offline and bring it back with a summary of the votes. The purpose of today's meeting or agenda item is mostly to discuss or have each council member have the opportunity to discuss anything that they saw in there that they should want to note for each council member to consider that they feel might be of importance. The goal here in the end of today, either today and next time or just today, is to come up with 5 top priorities that the council would like to send on to the League of Oregon Cities. They take these top 5 priorities that you submit and they assemble those with all the rest of the priorities from the other cities that submit, and they use that to create their own priority list when they go to do lobbying at the state legislature of really where they want to focus most of their attention on. So yeah, just because we submit the 5 doesn't mean those will be their top 5, but it gives us a chance to be part of that process and to help identify where we feel they should do. Another thing I want to accomplish that we didn't do last time that would be helpful is to go through each of the priorities, or at least to identify if there's any priorities you don't feel we should have as just for me. So if the League of Oregon Cities reaches out and asks us to provide support for or against something, I know where the council's opinion is on that, so I could jump in and provide that on behalf of the city, even beyond the top 5, just so we kind of know a yay or nay, or for this or against this, support this or not. That way it gives me direction separate from this of how to work through the legislative session. Any
They're all
questions?
important. I mean,
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Oh, yeah, to put some context in this, I served on 2 of the League's 7 committees. And there was a lot of contention, among throughout Oregon. So this is important, so my suggestion at this point is for us to each ruminate on the ones that are articulated here. And there were actually quite a few more beyond that didn't make the list. And then rank them, for like Ben suggested. And then maybe we each score our top 5. And then the next meeting, we can kind of coalesce and see where we have agreement, where we make some, have a consensus on. I think that's probably one of the more efficient ways after hours and hours on these committees. You can't do that, and you can't do this in 20 minutes or an hour.
Absolutely. The reason that's what we did last year, and the reason I brought this ahead of time was I felt it might be, and maybe it's not necessary, an opportunity for you to be able to at least have a discussion before votes are done.
Yeah.
I guess your own way to lobby for what you think is most important before people vote for it.
But yeah, that's my suggestion. Is
Right.
We each go through this list and we send our amalgamation to you.
Right.
And then at the next meeting, we still have time to get it in by the 25th.
Right.
Then we come up as a consensus of our top 5.
Right.
Hey, Ben, can you remind us what we voted for last year and where did LOC, what did they actually achieve with those?
I can
goals?
get back to you on that. I don't have those presents.
That would
give
be
you the
helpful.
accurate information.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, I can send that out after the meeting.
So if we had discussed a little bit quickly about them and then maybe send you our top 5.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of give numbers. And if all of us said one of them, then we know we all are passionate about that. But then at the next meeting, we can kind of fine tune and come up. How many do you want to submit to the LOC?
We can only do top 5 to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can have as many.
Yeah, if you submit top 5 and then you see 3 of them were unanimous, then you'll know if they ever asked for letters of support or
Right.
questions, and you know how we feel. I'll just kind of start. I mean, they're all good. The ones that I've heard a lot of, I'm on a task force right now about energy transmission capacity. And, that's a big one for us. It's just the transmission itself. We've got a lot of issues with power lines and stuff. And I know it's all around the state. So to me, that's an important one I'd like to kind of look into more. That is directly affecting me because I'm having a few meetings and stuff with it. When I had, and we do public meeting law. Clarity seems to come up a lot, and kind of changing and the importance of it. So I'm always wanting to make sure we're above board and we know any changes they make or recommendations. So that's kind of a big one that I hear a lot about. And then infrastructure funding, loving to be able to, like those direct funding we got on ARPA dollars or monies that we could just use for our own decisions. It's really good to be able to have some money for our water and our stormwater and our wastewater facility.
Well, for me, it's almost on topics that we're struggling with statewide, which is, and sometimes the country, but I know transportation we're struggling with. Excuse me, dollars are being taken away from like ODOT. So, and then workforce development. So to me, that's, close to what I do and see it every day. So.
I know on the transportation, they almost passed that emergency tax bill in the middle of the session. I mean, it's a big deal out there. We may not see it day to day on our own, but if you read about it, it sounds like they're broken and need definite fixing.
I think land use streamlining would be. No, it's a total mess. And housing, I think was more,
Yeah, well, we've always heard that Oregon's land use laws are really complex and hard to understand. So that's always a good one to, especially if she's trying to get us to build a lot of housing. But they aren't giving you the tools to have it done.
AI too.
Yeah,
I-
was just about to say,
Cybersecurity.
one of the more responsible city implementation block this stuff. And the backlash is tremendous. We have citizens that are canceling contracts. We have citizens that are literally cutting down poles and destroying campus. And it's reached the point where the company itself is actually backtracking, trying now to damage the public relations. So I think this would be a time for to implement some sort of consistent, coherent idea of how is what they do, how they do it, how they do it about it. It's getting ugly. It really needs to have some sort of leadership.
I guess I'll share my thoughts. First of all, I'm a bit disappointed that there's not more meaningful ideas around tax reform.
That's what big.
Like, where are the long-term meaningful solutions? So, but more positively, the things that really stood out to me, the public meeting law clarity. I remember going through the public, was it the Oregon Ethics Committee training that we're all required to do, and you know, some of the newer reforms, I think, discourage people from public service. There were people on like planning committees in different jurisdictions who were like, this isn't worth it to me to be personally liable, right? So I think that's a really important one. I think the land availability and land use streamlining is also really important. And then my other three really revolve around energy, the energy resilience, disaster planning, support expedited local renewable energy generation, and support increased energy transmission. I think these are some of the biggest constraints for economic development and risk for communities.
Some of these to me look like they're not real obtainable. So I would, you know, reading through these, I mean, these all sound great, but I think we also need to be realistic on, I would rather see LOC put their time into things that are likely to be obtainable than picking things and trying to spearhead things that are a waste of time, basically.
Are there need to stand out right off the bat, I think, start?
I just kind of skimmed over. It's kind of funny just listening to everybody because, you know, based on their experience and what committees they're involved in, you know, that's kind of their wheelhouse. And so they kind of, no pun intended, flock to those, those topics. So, you know, like the emergency communication system one stands out to me because of my background and being on the 911 board and understanding, you know, the lack of funding for those systems that, you know, every 10 years they're basically outdated. So I would like to take a more in-depth look at these. But
Yeah, I would maybe vote on your top 5 in order of importance. And again, it is funny, there isn't anything on policing or safety or really specifically. I mean, and then the taxation is the big one. They've even kind of said it's just too big for them but you got to start somewhere. If there is an issue and everyone says there is, why can't you at least start you don't have to solve it in the 1 year, but you can start getting people at the table.
And it is the biggest issue that impacts us. So I agree with
And if it's too big for LOC to tackle, who's going to tackle it?
But that's the thing is, you know, these 5 are important because we're, you know, those are going to be the focus of the lobbying effort on the legislature in the next legislative session. So, you know, if we can have our input and it aligns with 75 or 80% of the other communities, then we've got a much more forceful argument. And so, you know, putting some thought into those, you know, because I've got 8 or 10 that I'd really like to see there, but I know it has to be winnowed down to 5. And so I think that's where we have to think about this. And I like this kind of Ben's suggestion of just having a spreadsheet and list them, you know, this one, that, yes, you know, so, you know, that kind of thumbs up approach. And I think when we can all together, just from listening to the conversation, I think there's 3 or 4, or at least 2 or 3 that we all are going to agree on. And
you look up last year's too, they went, or 2 years ago, they went and they fought for 5 things, and you interested to see what they are. One of them was the tax on hotels, being able to cities have more ability to do that. It kind of died in committee, and one was a transportation one. So you kind of see what they fought for and which ones didn't get out of committee and which ones they won some things. The recreation immunity one was the big one.
Right, and they don't just focus on the top 5. That just kind of gives them their main priority, but they do lobby for the rest of them as well as they come up. You know, they did have some success, and we had Patty do a presentation, or some from the organization show what they had done and what they had accomplished out of those. A couple of considerations for that staff. I haven't got it from all the directors yet, but they had mentioned as notable the maintaining the local control of a safe and modern right of way. So that affects like our franchise agreements, taking away our ability to charge on those. Telecommunications has been a huge one nationwide that has been trying to fight that. But it is our right of way, our land, and the goal, I guess, is there's those who are trying to take away that ability for us to have franchise agreements or the ability to control those as much.
Ben,
Take away some of that.
I have a question. Am I understand this correctly that you're gonna send something out and have us vote?
Yep,
on-
yep. I'm just giving some considerations for thoughts, and then we're gonna do the 1 through 5. I'm gonna tally them together, and then we'll have additional discussion next time.
So would it be realistic with your time to also just put, I don't know, if you wanna do like a graded assessment on what you think the likelihood of, I mean, I want to make a recommendation for them to use their time wisely on something that's gonna return something that is actually, I want to advocate for something that's achievable. So
Yeah, I could maybe give a little bit of that input of if it's a near term or long term. You know, for example, you mentioned about the taxation, wanting that in there. Some of the issues, so the League of Oregon Cities is going through a process for that. However, for the actual legislative session, they're very limited because it's a charter amendment they have to go through. So it's a voter, it has to go out to the voters. So when they actually are going to do something, they want to send that out, and knowing that the state's voters are going to approve it, not just try to get the legislation behind it because they can't do a whole lot with it at maybe just that session. Then maybe they could have some type of adjustments. I don't know the limits of that, but I do know that they are bound. It's pretty difficult on that one because it is in the state charter of how that is working with those taxes. But yeah, I could, a lot of them I may not know. If it's, I mean, some of these I don't deal with directly. So as you might have to make your own decision on that. Yeah, so I can send out the rest with the staff as well, just kind of showing where those are at. Oh, we'll go through that next time. The other one that really stood out, well, I'll just name them, the ones that they put down. So the right of way, the cybersecurity proficiency, the public meeting laws. So a lot of what you guys had mentioned already. There was a mention of the shelter and homeless response, full funding and streamlining for housing production and land availability. So all 3 of the housing land use ones. Their support for several of the energy and environment committee. Also, you have a transmission issue in our county, and that affects the businesses that come into town or the ability to give them electricity. So that was mentioned. Emergency communication system resource was mentioned. The autonomous vehicles, cautious adoption, and infrastructure funding were the ones that they had identified. And like you said, it is interesting because the response I got from them were within their own wheelhouse as well. I mean, you have public works looking at public work stuff, planning looking at planning stuff. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. It's just ultimately what do you want to
I
submit?
mean, that's good. I wouldn't even really thought much about modern right of way, but then when you see that it's also the revenue derived from the use of that. And that's
Right.
good to hear that does affect us directly.
Well, our biggest challenge is funding. Is that an accurate statement for all the cities or all the smaller cities? basically?
Usually, unfunded mandates, which goes back to funding. We mentioned that with the stormwater today. They make new regulations. We have the people who can actually enforce it. Yeah, infrastructure control. A lot of the things that hit us are around funding or the ability to get there. Other than the public meetings law is not funding one.
And power for us here.
Yeah, transmission. It's funding for the PUD they need, but
Mhm.
it is what gets in the way because talking to the PUD, I mean, it's $20 million plus if they get Bonneville to actually support system wide. It'd still be a big hit for our county that we'd have to deal with. So
Now, all these probably kind of go back to funding except public meetings, but it's, you know, shelter and homeless and the funding for that, the revenue from alcohol, that's revenue, the local, you know, the right of way. I mean, all these kind of come back to a funding issue.
Yeah,
Instead of
good
addressing
points.
the tax. How we tax, they want to do all these other little. Okay, any more?
no, if there's any more discussion for you, I just wanted to have the conversation. You guys had a chance to just talk about them. Any questions you have about any of them? And then like, yeah, so if you just want to get me your top 5, just email them to me in the next couple weeks. Read through those, ask me questions. You could go back and review the meeting, or I can send out the results of their last time with what 5 that we voted on last year. So I'll send that out.
Has LLC in their meetings, I haven't attended the last one, have they presented and said, well, it seems like these are the ones that we can actually, advocate for, and then that they seems like they're a possibility to pass, or anything like that, like,
No, they haven't. I mean, all of these went through the policy committees of what cities are facing. So they already have some board direction that these are important and have a direction that they want to support to move towards. Some of them may be longer than others as far as timeline to get something done.
I just like to, I forgot her name. She's the one that goes around and talks about all the legislation or the updates.
Patty.
No, the gal.
Pierce sometimes does that as well.
I think she has like red hair.
Oh,
Anyways, I think it'd be good to get her opinion. It's not Jessica, is it?
they have a
Anyway.
whole lobbying team, so it just depends on
Yeah.
who came to that meeting.
Can we reach out to them?
Yeah, you guys can reach out.
Okay,
By all means.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, looking at canceling the right after Labor Day, September 8th, city council meeting, anything pressing that we would be missing? Are we still good on that?
Okay, good.
Caught up on this 50-year plan, everything good? All right. I guess we've stuck to voting on that. Does anybody have a motion to cancel September 8th meeting?
That is right after Labor Day.
And with that, I mean, that means staff, everybody has to get their reports in.
Yeah.
And it's harder for us to look at a lot of notes if we're out of town on the 3-day weekends. And if there's nothing pressing, it costs money every time we have a meeting. So we've been doing pretty good right now. Definitely willing to go to 2 meetings and get the business done, especially if it starts to pick up as the year progresses.
Mr. Mayor, I move we cancel the September 8th meeting.
Councilor Haugen makes a motion to cancel the September 8th, 2026 city council meeting. Second by Councilor Ryuta. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to the calendar, August 17th. Okay, for the rest of the month, we do have still movies in the park, the last 2 Fridays in August, and the Scappoose Farmers Market 9 to 2 every Saturday in August and September. Looks like right now, the next council work session at 6 p.m., followed by council meeting at 7 p.m. on September 21st. That's it for the calendar. Update, City Manager Ben Bergeron, any updates?
Yeah, just first of all, it's always exciting to work with the staff that we do have. Kevin Turner is here, the new Public Works Director. He's really had a lot on his plate. He's come over, taken over that position, just to see how he's already thriving and the different things that we've been able to do since he has come in. It's been really great to see. I hope the community has had a chance to go out and see the progress of the playground that is being built. It looks really good. People have utilized the pickleball temporary courts that we have in there, as well as the disc golf course that is all new within the last month and a half. So a lot of areas on the parks, a lot of infrastructure upgrades and improvements. We're excited with the basalt well actually getting down to the basalt well, which is further than we've been before. They will be getting that secured. Then you get down to, they're at 815-ish feet, and then you get down to 800 and a little over 820 to actually secure the casing, but not yet. No, they need to get that casing in there and secure it actually in the basalt layer before they're going to drill down and actually look for the water and beyond that. So they've gotten further than we were able to get in the past. It's really good to see that progress because we got past all the major obstacles that we've hit. From this point on, it's really drilling down, and they're contracted to go down to 1,200 feet. So we've got a good room to go with that. Hopefully we hit something in less than that, but we are excited to see that progress and moving forward, along with the water and the wastewater plants getting right at the end of those and the benefit they'll have to the community. Yeah, as far as other part, just, it's always good to follow up on the, it's unfortunate that sometimes there's, recently a lot of public comment that attacks our police department. And I do want to express my disagreement with the characterization of their staff, as well as the chief. I do fully support the police chief and his staff for all they do. They're not perfect. Where they have imperfections, they improve on, but they're really good staff and they're providing a really good service to our community. It's easy to hone in on individual imperfections, but it ignores the totality of their performance and the contribution to our community and the city, including the training and growth process that all employees go through as they learn their jobs and look to get better. Once again, I fully support them, and I support our decisions and the associate promotions. We have done the best we can with the resources we have, and look forward to continue to provide the best service possible to our community.
I have a question, Ben. So were you familiar with the incident that in public comment that was mentioned in the public comment?
Which one?
The incident that she addressed
With the firearm, I believe.
with the
she's talking
firearm
about.
and
No, that was the first time I had heard of that one.
Or the accusation related to a firearm, let's put it that way, since we
Right.
weren't there.
exactly. I'm just wondering how much truth because, it's public comment, it's in the public and people are going to hear what they want to hear, but I also want to hear there's two sides to a story.
Well, yeah, what I want to say, and I don't want to get into personnel issues,
Right.
and the can of worms that brings, but when we do receive any public comment about anything new that we have maybe not heard or we may already know, we do look into all of those, and if there's any adjustments, we do make those or do proper training for that. We take all comments, whether from public comment or written comments, seriously. We take a look at all of them and review them. Doesn't mean we always agree with all of everything that's done. Doesn't mean that we do everything they ask us to do, because sometimes people misuse that process or they just don't understand the process. But we do review every single one. And if there is any opportunity for growth, we always take a look at that and we own up to those and change those where we can or where it's feasible to do so.
And I know you do that. It's just, I think it would help in just if we're more transparent with, okay, we followed up and this is what we done. Not, you have to explain everything, but you have addressed it so that we know, because and then they come and then they say, well, they never got back to us. It was kind of put to the side and we were ignored. We just want to know, I want to know both sides of the story. Like
Council Shiniaco, I was going to talk about that, but.
Okay.
I'll let you continue.
Can I hold off and see if you're going to say something? Once again, I want to be very careful with personnel related
Right.
experiences.
Right.
While there's a lot of information people would like to know, and it's fun to know, when it comes to personnel, what I can say is we do take those serious. We'll look into them and we will make any training or corrections if there is anything substantiated in that.
Okay.
But we do not follow up on those because that would be addressing whether there was personnel performance issues done or not,
Okay.
which is a protected record. But we do look into those and we do follow up on them
All right, thank you.
internally.
I want you to state that further also for the record. Thank you.
Is it accurate to say that her statement that the person that was the citizen that was involved in that, did we receive a complaint? Is there just that? You don't have to go any further than that. Just was there a complaint?
Yes, there was.
Okay, thank you.
Since you have the conch, Chief Llewellyn.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor, and also councilors, also those online who are watching us later on. So first, I want to say congratulations to Officer Jacob Cunningham. Just graduated academy. He's out here doing his FPO process. He graduated with over 90% at the academy, all the reppers. So good to him. I think it was chomping at the bit to talk about this, but I won't go into more additional details to the Pier Grand incident, but just referring to public comment and a good segue there. First, I'll start about towing. I know it's been a big thing, especially post up on social media with the RV. A lot of people think just because there's a municipal violation of a tow, that we can tow it instantly that day. A lot of people don't know or realize too, though, that there's a municipal code, it's Title 11, 04280, that says we, as a police department, if a vehicle is in violation of that chapter for park, we cannot tow it unless there's 2 unpaid tickets. So that requires us as a police department to cite that, and each ticket usually takes about 30 days to go through the court system, so about 60 days. There are some different additional ORSs where if a person is driving, you stop them for like not having insurance and stuff like that, you can tow their vehicle, but usually don't apply in the situation. Reference about this complaint that was received, even before this was done, that complaint was reviewed already. And generally speaking, for us in the police department, when we do see a complaint at a certain seriousness, we have software that I purchased so that we can track it. It has timestamps for everything like that. Usually comes to a first line supervisor in a situation it did, who reviews body worn camera. Have here. And also for validity of those complaints. In this particular situation, as another level, it goes up to me as a supervisor, as a chief. In this situation, I personally went out there and talked to the individual, looked at their footage to compare. I won't go into details, but some things were substance that was talked about. And then from there, in this particular situation, even though there was no major issue that I particularly saw, in a judicial level, transparent without being prompted, I reached out to another police department, just double check and look and get their input. So this is something I do. I do believe in transparency and also policing ourselves as law enforcement. And just one thing I want to say about Detective Johnson. He's a fellow veteran. He's very competent in firearm. And we do hours of training throughout the year at Scapa Police Department Firearms. To include this week, we're doing some firearms training with partners at the St. Helens Police Department. So there was no issues while removing it. That was a tactical decision made from there. So this is documented in those type of situations. Any additional, walk on to too much more details. Is there any additional questions on that?
No, thank you for stating for the record.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. I mean, people have a right to, and thank you, City Manager, for your comments too. People have a right, as a veteran myself, of being a First Amendment, like accurate information, but they have a right to say what they want in this country. That's why I love America. And that being said, unless there's no questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of going on the something they're towed. I mean,
Yes.
there's also an opportunity that it might have to go to a court, and the court, the judge may push it off. I mean, things can take months because of other things, not us. I mean.
Yes, it's not that simple. Another thing too, from my experience, also working my previous employer with the Washington State Patrol, people also have a right to a hearing. Now, what happens if we were to lose that, we didn't follow the law particularly, then the city of Scappoose pays the bill for towing fees, which can require thousands of dollars. So that's why I want to make sure our department is following the letter of the law. So if there was some change that want to be made, that's something I'd like to. Yes, Council President Miller.
So Chief, just to summarize this, I mean, you guys have a procedure that you use for tagging these things with a timeline that's prescribed, correct? And so if somebody comes in and doesn't like the timeline that was given or a date that was written on, say, the orange tag, the impound notice, that was prescribed by either our Muni code. We're not arbitrarily making up these dates and the amount of time that they have to respond to these things, correct?
We're, as a police department, we don't operate that way. I personally don't know who owns the boat. I do like boats, but I don't know who that person is. And with that being said, going forward, we continue to just follow what's outlined in the law.
So the summary of all this basically is that the procedure, the Muni code, the amount of time that somebody has to respond to do something related to their vehicle was followed. And that's
correct. I recommend people also look at the municipal code too regarding when we can entail under that. And I think last but not least too as well is that, for us, we continue to always improve our processes, things such as that nature, obviously. But I thank you for the opportunity to let me just kind of explain that. And there's additional questions, but we document those things and we take complaints seriously, even they may not be found or not. So.
And I do want to reiterate on code enforcement. It has been we've had several comments or questions about that recently. And we are looking at ways to maybe help the public better understand the process of that. But just to reiterate the process, people usually put in a complaint, and some typically want that taken care of right away. The way that we operate and the way that state statute and city code works, if there is an uncompliant person, it can take time. So we typically try to reach out to give somebody the benefit of the doubt, let them know that there's a violation, give them a chance, the ability to rectify themselves before it goes into a citation or something else. Just because a lot of people don't know what the code is. And so just to notify them, hey, just let you know, you're outside of our code, it's a violation, you get that fixed. They get the opportunity to do so. If they don't, that's where they have to follow up with more strict measures. They get those citations, which typically end up with a court date, which could be a month out or more, but typically about a month. Depending what happens in court, can spread that out further. And every single one of these situations is so unique, depending on the person, depending on the situation. The police department and the code enforcement tries their best to follow the process, but it can be a different timeline for something that seemingly seems like the same process, just because depending on what happens through that process, depending on outside, circumstances, such like you said, Mayor Backus, that if a judge prescribes something else, it can throw that off, or if there's an appeal or there's something else. And so what I want to really put on the record for those looking at code enforcement, we have a good code enforcement officer, a good process where we are improving it, but it does take time for those who are not looking to comply with that. So,
And if I can too, not to beat that horse, but I think the reason I wasn't here when the law was made for the 2 tickets, but I think it's designed to help give people a chance to comply. I mean, there's a lot of people, their vehicles, their livelihood, and we can technically tow a vehicle just because your registration expired. And there's a lot of people who use that to commute and to bring food on the table for their family. So there's both sides of the coin, and I think obviously if it gets to that 60 days, then they're not planning to comply. So that's another reason I think it's a little bit drawn out there, but something the council can possibly change if they wanted to. In the future.
So I was going to make a comment
Yes.
during my comment time about code enforcement, because I have my own frustrations, to be candid, about the code enforcement program, and I can get into more detail about that. But I'm wondering if some of it, if not a lot of it, is based on this, how long it takes to accomplish something. I'm wondering if there's a way to link something, because this is public record. So I'm wondering if we can put on a page on the city's website, basically the address or location of a code enforcement activity and just the very generic nature and what stage it's in. And then we can start, because I think a lot of it is just communication and transparency is not the right word because we're not hiding anything, but it's just putting out there a place where people can go to get informed about where something's at. But I mean, I've made a code enforcement complaint about a residence that has multiple code enforcement violations over a year ago. And I don't know that anything was, if it was even looked at. And I have other examples too, but I do have frustrations with our code enforcement program, and I hope that we continue to improve that. But I think a big part of it is potentially the way that we educate the public about our pending code enforcement violations and where we're at with the status of those things.
Okay. All right. My one recommendation around that would be to consider the person being put on a map. Especially if they're not overtly being belligerent, or if they're out of town or can't get a hold and end up with a citation, it could become a public flogging type thing, like, oh, you're out of compliance, what the heck is going on? And people who normally wouldn't know, now you're on this record publicly that people could use to publicly
maybe we
attack.
Then maybe we limit it to things that are visual that people can see with the eye, because those are the things that people are generally complaining about the most.
That's true.
I see your point, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
You're
you.
fine.
This is actually what I was going to comment about during my time, but since we were talking
You're
about
fine.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, let's leave it with this. If we can think about this and see if there's any way to do something like that, and maybe have further conversations about it later, I think that'd be great.
Right. And one way to solve that is just when people are curious, they can always call in and ask about it, and they can submit their own complaint as well. And then they say, hey, we're already working on that, or they can get information or do obviously a public records request, but which would then get the opportunity to redact anything that is not supposed to be out there. But yeah, we can look at that. We're always looking to improve that process and appreciate any feedback or ideas like that. And we'll respond obviously with any potential concerns we may have with that, and come with a process that is just hopefully better than what we had before. So
thank you.
One thing I'm looking at is, I mean, I think our code enforcement has evolved and growing here. I mean, before we didn't have anybody, then kind of a part-time, and now we're going to full-time. And I think it would be nice to understand what code enforcement meant. What is our code? What are they looking for? I mean, I agree. I don't want to go out and necessarily ticket everybody right away for everything. I like education. I like us to communicate, and maybe by putting out in the newsletter, things we're looking for, things that are popping up as code enforcement violations that we see ahead of time. So maybe you guys can work on them ahead of time. And then again, too, if I leave a basketball hoop out, I don't want to be on some website. They came to me first and just said something. I'd fix it right away. Now, if I don't, or if I don't for a while and then I get it, but
And not, not the calendar, but I think a lot of people, our community members do. There are some those that are a little bit more difficult, need more attention, I would say, to kind of make that happen. And particularly certain things like when it comes to weeds or grass being tall, there's some people in our community that unless law enforcement talks to them, that's going to keep developing. You have to do it seasonally to go out there over and over again. I experienced that personally here while working here in my capacity. So.
And I trust that if if there's something safety involved, you're going to step in sooner and right away. I mean, if it's a safety issue.
Correct.
Let's go, Mr. Turner, Public Works Director, since you're still here, we have your report in the back. Is there anything real special you wanted to give us an update of your department? Anything happening? If you do, you need to come and speak to the microphone.
Couple projects we didn't mention tonight. I think the commonly layback is underway. And then the recent pavement overlay just down the street. Those are successful projects happening, and we always measure those successes and also look at opportunities for improvement on future ones by doing those.
And those overlays were done by gas taxes. So.
Right. Right. Those signs will be out too, if they're not already.
I've been seeing a lot of people at the park lately. I even saw the workers were down there a week ago Sunday working, building stuff, and people are asking about bridges and everything. And with the overlay, I mean, is that still in the works, the possible bridge that we were focusing on earlier? And
That one's in planning as well.
And then the Veterans Park North plans are being approved, and or you guys are picking, it looked like you selected an outfit to
Archaeologists.
design.
Yes,
So
underway.
that's all in the process. It's all working. I mean, it's great. Appreciate it. Thank you. Student Rep Michael, your first meeting here. If there's anything, I know it's the middle of summer, not much happening. The school's about to begin shortly. Is there anything that you'd like to report or give us an update on?
I do have a couple things. One, throughout the summer, there's been summer workouts at the school for athletes who want to get a couple reps in at the gym or want to get more agility stuff done on the field. That's been a really good help for athletes. I've gone there a couple times myself, and there's always been a large group of people. Last week or the week before, I went to the school board meeting, and the biggest thing was OPE and Warren Elementary had two new principals appointed, and they talked about that and also the bond, which they proposed 3 options for it, and a lot of people were still kind of skeptical about it. And with summer ending, fall sports is starting to begin, so more practices happened at the high school. That's really about it.
Thank you. I did hear, I mean, they're really iffy on this bond at this time to get it on the November ballot. I'm sure they really want to do it right and they don't want to rush through. So I don't know if there's meetings still happening to really make a final decision or if they've announced anything.
I'll segue off of Michael's comments then. Yeah, the school district, my understanding is it's going to be on pause on the bond. And I think there's a genuine interest in involving the city in discussion. So hopefully that comes to fruition sooner than later. But I don't think there's any reasonable way that bond can be on the November ballot. That's not possible. So maybe May next year. But I think the city's going to see a lot of interaction here with the school district. Hopefully, but just an elaboration on that.
And I like to add on to, the summer workouts, the early morning workouts. I do want to give a shout out to, Joe Nallen and the staff there. I think that's why the school has done so well in a lot of their athletics is their ability to really put in the time and energy out of season and before and after. And I think it's really helped a lot of our student athletes, and I've seen it over the years.
And then I've got a couple other things. First, I want to publicly note that I have complete confidence in Chief Llewellyn and City Manager Bergner, in contrast to some other statements that have been made recently. So I just want to publicly state that. And then also, as a courtesy, I'd like to explain why I voted no for the 50-year plan. And courtesy to the staff, which did a remarkably good job. The volunteers, Echo Northwest did a good job. They did very good work, but I could not come to terms with the fact that we did not do a comprehensive watershed study. They should have driven the whole planning process, and that was never done. It wasn't addressed. It wasn't even considered. And I couldn't understand how you could do a 50-year plan without addressing those kind of environmental issues. And then secondly, I basically had three reasons for voting no. The second one, I don't see we have an adequate water supply at the present moment to serve anticipated growth. And so that's another rationale for not expanding the UGB at this particular moment. And then third, we have a surplus of industrial property that has an infrastructure already in. We don't have to pay for it, it's already done. And rezoning some of that for residential property was not even looked at. And so I had three serious issues with that plan. I voted for it to begin with to support it, to start the process. It didn't turn out the way what I was visualizing. So that was my rationale. It's not an affront to anybody. I have the greatest admiration for the Echo Northwest staff and the volunteers that put a lot of hours into this. So I just wanted to publicly note that. Provide a rationale as a courtesy for my no vote on that. And then lastly, there's a mug that Brad Bremer, the local potter, he made two prototypes. And so I'm going to pass this down, and that'll hopefully end up with Ben. And maybe Ben will secure bunch of these so we can give them to various people in milestones and in their time with the city councilors, planning commissioners, anybody or people that come, guests that come in to look at the community for business, or prospective businesses. So take a look at this, and if you like the looks of this, and it's got the Scappoose logo on it in the font, correct font, and I thought he did a really nice job, and then Ben can use that to drink coffee out of here. He can drink tea out of that. So
That's right.
Well, thank you, Joel. I do appreciate your comments on your vote decision there, and I'm hoping then put in a lot of time and energy this over the last several years. So hopefully we will be able to listen to kind of your concerns and issues as we go forward and address them if needed. So, because I think they're valuable. Appreciate that. Are you done? Is that your comments for the night?
That's it.
Appreciate it there. And is the high school gym open yet? Did they reopen the gym from all the crack?
Currently, they are still making some final adjustments to the support beam, but by the time school starts, it should be completely fixed and the gym should be open before school starts.
Perfect. Counselor Wyuda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to turn this to something a little more pleasant. I'd like to talk about trees. And watching some trees being planted along the development. I noticed that they're putting in some of the same trees that I've seen in some parks recently. And the trees that are in, for instance, Veterans Park, they don't look particularly healthy. Part of the reason for that is that they're not really trees that would do well in this particular location. So I just had a conversation with Gloria Oliver Joseph before the meeting. We were discussing about how trees are selected and the tree inventory. And she said that there is a list of approved trees and that it's just sort of been accumulated over the years. We've added to it, but no one really wants. And she said she'd be happy to share it. If you'd like to look at it. And so that got me thinking. One of the things as I walk around the city, I think to myself, well, there is such a thing as the street tree program. And that's where the people in the community living there or visiting there and look at a tree and say, I wonder what sort of tree that was. I wonder when it was put in, or I wonder if it has any significance. And then we drop around Europe and some cities in the United States, they have documentation. We can look up a number or look up a QR code and see the tree. And what I would like to do is I would like to undertake this project myself with Freeman Bush, not belaboring the city staff, except for the occasional request for a bit of information. And possibly leverage the citizen science of many of the local people in the area through the iNaturalist program. See if we can put together at least the beginnings of a street tree map, document what trees are here, what species they are, where they are, maybe a little bit about what condition they're in. And then if we can succeed in that, perhaps look at expanding that into what eventually would reach as a full tree inventory for the benefit of the community, so that people could become more engaged with the nature of it itself. We have a lovely thing here. It's very rich. And I think that more people might like to know more about it if they have the opportunity.
No, I think that is good. According, at least with me, I know when I first started, we did have somebody come in. I don't know if it was from the watershed or tree inventory, and they did a whole inventory of like a lot of our trees and our coverage and and talked about how we are kind of lower than we should be on our canopy and stuff. And so it would be interesting. Also, is there apps where you can take a picture of a leaf and then it just show you what it is?
Yes, that's the reason I would like to leverage the citizen science app, a nonprofit organization called iNaturalist. And it's loaded on people's phones. You simply take a picture of plants and fish and animal, anything like that, and you can geotag it to a location, and then it will use the collected database to provide an identity as to what it is. So in that way, we can document where it is and what it is. And because you can use a program for research such as this, there's a local pair that has just completed a very significant research program into the amphibians of Columbia County. And they've produced quite an impressive report, completely volunteer and completely based on citizen science. So I think this may be something that we could achieve.
I think your expertise and passion for it would be greatly appreciated. All right, Councilor Marquis.
Thanks. I don't have much to add other than say I have done a tree height map of somewhere from LiDAR data. So there's already some work that's been going on. That's all.
Right. Councilor Holmes.
Yes, I also want to show my vote of support for city leadership. I look back at the position the city was in 4 years ago when I joined city council, and I think we are in a very strong position, both in terms of where we are with city management, financially, our leveraging of grants for expansion is great, and certainly the state of our police department is probably the best it's been in anyone's recent memory. So I don't think there's any question that the city's in good hands with our current leadership. I will just give a quick update. The CERT team, the Community Emergency Response Team, continues to meet. I did want to pass along one piece of information. We had the county's new emergency manager, Jessica, come and join the meeting. She's working on helping to identify different training opportunities for our newly growing team. We are also establishing the minimum training requirements for volunteers, kind of making two classes of volunteers, those who are just kind of interested in learning more about emergency preparedness and maybe helping with community events, and then those that can actually be activated because they have the proper training. So we're working on kind of defining all of that, and also a participant agreement, just so we can ensure there's a certain level of performance and professionalism that the volunteers have. So the group is taking shape really nicely. Jessica did let us know the county's natural hazard mitigation plan expires on February 2nd. This is the plan that enables communities, makes them eligible for receiving money from FEMA in the event of a declared emergency. It takes about 18 months to renew the plan. And so ours will expire before that can be completed. So they'll be filing an extraordinary circumstances extension so that during the time that they're working on updating the plan effectively, people will remain eligible for receiving funds if needed. Scappoose will need effectively like a chapter. And so they'll be reaching out in January to engage when they bring their contractor on board. So just kind of put a pin in that for a forecast that we'll need to work and contribute to that to make sure that we are eligible and covered under the update of that plan. And I would just say, since we are canceling our next meeting, school will be in session. Kids will be walking to school. Everyone commuting, please be mindful of all of our youth that will be making their way as well.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Santiago.
Yeah, I was gonna not have much, but you guys all came up with something. I was thinking, thank you, John, for offering that. That's a great idea. I'm thinking maybe we can incorporate something with what's going on with the trail, the grant that Lori was talking about today. So that came into mind. And of course, I agree with all of you guys in supporting the city, supporting city manager, chief. I just think that we should be addressing it for the public and just for the record. And I agree. When I came on initially, it wasn't like what it is today. So we are 100 times, I would say 100 times better than we were when I came into council. And then also the planning, that's great because I'm glad that we're going to have some type of plan. There's so many things that are going on in the world, earthquakes and fires and things like that. So I think it's very important. And thank you for sharing that information and for being part of that committee. By the time we get back to our next meeting, and this is just coincidence that I'm wearing this shirt, but it's going to be Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th, excuse me. So, but yeah, so have gosh, already summer's gone. So happy fall, everyone.
Council President Miller, do you want to add anything?
Just glad to be back in person and see everybody. And I miss you all.
No, you didn't.
John, did you get what you needed from us and the city about proceeding with that project, or do you feel like
This is just the first steps of it this evening. It's been something floating around in my head, but it's actually started to shield this evening. Conversation with Lori, that gave me a place that, all right, there's a firm place that I can begin with this, knowing what's been approved. And my intention is to focus on, let's start with the main thoroughfares and main parks first, because those are the most public. And then once we can document those, we can see how the documentation works, see what we need to refine, and then we can go outward from there.
Yeah. Susan, do you recall when we had that tree? We had somebody come in and talk to us. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And
Right after I started.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that's going to be really useful information for you, but I just want to make sure that city manager and I want to make sure that we're giving you what you need, because it sounds like an amazing, awesome project that will be a hit for the community. So I just want to make sure we have some wheels on this thing, I guess.
Yeah, just reach out to Lori or myself. We can find that report if it was done. I haven't seen it myself, but we could probably find that.
So it was an intern from Portland State University,
right.
right?
Yeah,
the
yeah,
tree
that's-
canopy
That's ringing a bell.
coverage study, yeah.
All right, well, I got 1 minute. Really, Brian, I don't have anything to say. No, I appreciate it. Again, just kind of for the record, Ben and Chief, 100% support. We don't always bring it up public meeting, but we do. I think we all talk to you guys on a regular basis, and you give us all the information that's important and pertinent. And I think you guys are doing a great job, and really appreciate the team we have right now with Public Works Director Kevin Turner now on board. I think we've got a really good team. I really look forward to all of our meetings. So appreciate it, and thanks. Have a good night.